Now I would, now I'd like to invite Annie up, our prayer chaplain, to light the Christ candle and read the daily word.
This past Friday night, I had the extremely wonderful opportunity to chant for 2.5 hours with Snadam Kaur. She is a Sikh woman who does kirtan. And she taught as she sang and as we sang. And she talked about guru. And guru, to my former understanding, is a teacher. And her deeper teaching and understanding is that, and she said it so much better than I do, guru, is wisdom. And it's the wisdom to be led from darkness to the light. And with that knowing and that understanding of guru, I light this candle. And I see and know this light in every one of you. And today's daily word, if you're comfortable closing your eyes and just letting these words wash over you. The daily word for Sunday, October 7th, 2018, is rejoice. I rejoice in unlimited possibilities. The Apostle Paul describes himself in his second letter to the Corinthians as sorrowful, yet always rejoicing. He calls upon his followers in Philippi to rejoice in the Lord always. By recognizing and thinking about the positive, the lovely, the excellent, and the praiseworthy energies in my life, I claim them and increase them. I rejoice when I both feel and express the joy of eternal spirit. There is energy in the infinite good that brings all people together in consciousness. I join with others in knowing and affirming that nothing is denied us through faith. I keep my focus on positive energies, bringing them into greater expressions in my life. I rejoice in unlimited possibilities. And from Philippians 4:4, rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say, rejoice. Please join me to be singing the Lord's Prayer, followed by Reverend Aubree-Lynn's meditation and Sunday talk.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.
Let us just quietly go into that sacred place. And sometimes we think about doors closing, windows opening, opportunities. But today I challenge you and myself to open new doors. So I invite you to go down a hall, a pathway, a happy place, and see doors that are closed. And think about doors that you do not want to open. See how many doors. There may be only one, a few, or many. Put a sign on the door, the one that you don't want to open the most. Or maybe there's just a couple of small things. So maybe you want 2 signs. Ask yourself, what door do I not want to open? And what I say to you, do it anyway. Open that door. You may be surprised. It's not as scary as you think. Go through that door now with great expectation. Facing something that in your mind is so big, but when you go through the door, it's so small. It may be a story you've been carrying around for years, and you've blown it out of proportion. It just may be your inner child asking for a hug. It could be a parent just saying, "I'm sorry, I love you." Whatever it is, person, place, or thing, whatever it is, I invite you to embrace it. To leave the door open. Feel a warm, gentle breeze flowing through. Feel the warmth of sunshine. Hear the soft call of a bird in the distance. And feel the presence of God. as you take in that healing, that peace, the calm, the release, the let go, if you had labeled any other doors, swing them open now with joy. And say, enough. No more. I let it go. And with joy in your heart, as you walk away, all doors wide open, because you were able to do it anyway. Slowly, gently, with joy in your heart. And when you are ready, come back to this very sacred place. So a few months ago, I stumbled on this little book called Anyway, The Paradoxical Commandments. But what really caught my attention about this little book was the blurb on the back of the book. And what it said was a book about grace, wisdom, and happiness comes from facing the worst in our world with the best of ourselves. Facing the worst in the world with the best of ourselves. And I know right now that we're all a little bit anxious, nervous, concerned, aggravated, perhaps. And our world can be crazy at times. Definitely can be crazy at times. And I think this is one of those times. But I bet you 50 years ago people said that, and then 100 years ago people said that, and 200 years ago people said that. And, you know, in the Old Testament they said that, in the New Testament they said that. So even though we're living in it right now, and it is our earthly reality, it's still the same story being said over and over again. So the paradoxical commandments then give us an interesting approach to finding personal meaning in this crazy world that we live in. So, as you know, a paradox is an idea that is contrary to popular opinion, something that seems to contradict common sense, and yet it's true. Does that sound familiar to anybody right now? I think so. I see a head shaking there. So after reading this book a couple of times, I agreed with the author when he said these commandments can be your personal independence. So we have 10 new commandments, and I will get through them quicker than the years that it took for them to be originally written. I think that was 40. So anyhow, so the very first line in this book is, it's best to begin by just admitting that the world is crazy. Okay, so we could admit that, right? So let's look at what makes the world crazy then. Well, we have politics running rampant. We have climate change. We have sexual abuse, child abuse, an increase in children living in poverty, the threat of nuclear warheads. We have people dying of starvation in our world. Children bringing themselves up by themselves while both parents work to try to follow the big dream of supporting their families. And the list could go on and on and on and on. But here's what you need to know. The world may be crazy, but you are not. See, we get caught up in that, and then we think, oh my God, I'm going crazy with this. No. That stuff is crazy. We are not. Dr. Holmes stated in many of his lectures that there's a place in the mind which intuitively knows that good overcomes evil, which intuitively knows that there's a place which knows no evil to overcome. The argument then is between the solid conviction that good is the only reality. Good is the only reality. We can't mix up good and evil, because if we do that, then we fluctuate between it, and we make ourselves what? Crazy, absolutely. Right. Well, got you right on today. I love it. So is this the same with peace and confusion? If our thoughts fluctuate between peace and confusion, then the external world will fluctuate also. So it's time to take a stand. The stand that I am speaking about is mental stand that negates evil and the confusion and all of the things that pollute and poison our world's energies. And once that we can do that, then these things don't become our reality. So it's time for us to do just that. Not for recognition, not for applause, not because it's the right and good thing to do, but when you can understand this, then your lives come from that soul level, that which we've been talking about in some way every week, that we're truly free, that we let it go. Freedom is the only thing that can bring you peace. Freedom to live your life to the best of your ability, to go out in the world as a peacemaker. I once read this article in the Science of Mind magazine about how to be really happy, and it speaks about being free. It says mystics describe themselves as being free because they are free, and because they're free, they're happy. You know, I am happy. Yeah, there's all this stuff going around, but I'm happy, and that's contagious. Happiness is contagious. Yesterday was so filled with joy and happiness that those of you that were there this morning when you came in, you could still see it bubbling, and it was like, wasn't it great and wasn't it fun? We're happy despite all of the other things around us. So to be free, we need to be who we really are, to live our life with personal meaning. You know, I have a vision and a mission for myself. What do you have a vision and mission for yourself, for your life? Do you have core values? It's not just for corporations and churches and whatever, our little mini ministries, but what about yourself? What are your core values? And now and then something will slip in my mind that's a little bit to that side, and I go, oops, come on back. You don't want to think that way. You don't want to do that. No, because I have core values. So let's just go then to the first commandment. You're going to love this. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. That's the first commandment. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. This is perhaps the most important, for without love, we are a mere shell. We're just a hollow soul wandering through this place called planet Earth. Love is not only the greatest gift we've been given by the Creator, it's the gift that we need to be giving and to be graciously receiving, to take it in. Keith, that's the author of the book, says this: it's a tragedy when people do decide not to love others because they do not approve of them, or they see them as illogical, unreasonable, and therefore not worthy of their love. It's a tragedy because love is not about approval or worthiness. If approval and worthiness were the prerequisite for love, the world would have very little love in it. Would you agree with me on that? Yeah. So if that's the prerequisite, then there are people who drive us crazy, right? There are people who there are people in here that I totally care about a lot, and they make me nuts. And I bless them, and I pray for them, and I love them. And those that aren't here that were here before, I miss them. But because in seeing who they are and their core values and their belief systems and their hurts and their pain, the only thing that you can do is love. And if those people could understand that and could work within that bounds of love, oh my God, we would have a second story on our church right now. We would have that right now. So the Buddha says this though: if it were not possible to free the heart from entanglement, greed, hate, and fear, I would not teach you to do so. I would not teach you to do so. It is possible. People are illogical, unreasonable, self-centered. Love them anyway. Number 2, if you do good, People will accuse you of being selfish, having ulterior motives. Do good anyway. Do good anyway. You know, I remember when I was in the corporate world and the higher ups sometimes would be suspicious of this and suspicious of that, and they would check this and check that. And I would say, don't accuse me or my team, people that work with me, of things that you are capable of doing yourself. Because if they're not in your mind, you wouldn't be. So if you've cheated on your expense account, or if you've brought a vendor in because they're giving you something under the table, don't accuse me of that, what you're capable of. So do good anyway. So if you do good and people twist and bend in something else, you still need to do what's right and good and true. And sometimes that'll backfire. One time I wouldn't throw somebody in the corporate world under the bridge because they didn't do anything wrong, and the CEO wanted me to throw them under and make them guilty of something they didn't do, and I wouldn't do it. And I will tell you, it cost me a lot of grief with the CEO and the VP of marketing. But I wouldn't do it because it wasn't right. The person didn't do anything wrong. So you do good anyway, and sometimes you suffer consequences for it. It's okay. It's okay. So if you do good, people will accuse you of being selfish, having ulterior motives. Do good anyway. Just do it. Number 3, if you are successful, this is kind of tricky. Listen to this. If you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. So have you ever noticed that when you're on the way up, how many friends are all around you and loving you, and especially, oh my God, if you should win the lottery, we'll think about that. But success breeds a whole new list of friends. And one of the things that I've learned, and it was a hard lesson, and it's a recent one, is that when you're in a new situation, to step back a little bit and evaluate a little bit more, because everybody comes in and wants to know every little bit about you, and they want to almost suck the blood out of you, and then if it's not the right flavor, then they leave. And this is a hard lesson. So we need to be careful about like attracts like, and about listening to gut levels within us. False friends and true enemies. I'd rather have true enemies than false friends. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. You can get Keith says you can get a new list of enemies, but they actually aren't your enemies. They're just people who see you as their enemy. They're not your enemies. They're people who see you as an enemy. So the key to people who, for whatever reason, attack your success is not to take it personal. And that's hard. That is very hard. And it's right back to what Don Miguel says in the 4 Agreements. The problem is theirs, not yours. And that's another one. That's hard to agree. Yes, this is going on right here. And yes, this is how you're reacting to it. But you are reacting to it. You are reacting to it. The 4 Agreements says, and this is important, to not take compliments or criticism personally. So if at the end of the service today, Dirk says to me, that was a great service, and that was the best you ever did. And you guys keep saying that. Like, how am I supposed to get better? But anyhow, so I say, thank you. Thank you. And then if Jackie says to me on Tuesday, that was really great, but that one thing that you said, I really didn't agree with. Thank you. See, so if I get overexcited about what Dirk said and then ripping mad over what Jackie says, then you're taking it personally. Compliments, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Let me look into that. And that's another thing that takes work to do, to be able to balance who and what you are in that. So work hard. Have a vision. Treat people with compassion and respect no matter what. Who knows, you may win new friends. Meister Eckhart wrote this, the outer work will never be puny if the inner work is great. And that's what we're working on. We're working within ourselves first so that what's going on in here radiates out. And that's what you want to be doing. When I say that you're a beacon of light, it's what is coming out of you that when you go out there, smiling at somebody in the store, not being mad if the bank line is too long, not getting at traffic. We don't even have traffic here. Get real. I'm from New York and California. You guys don't know traffic. So it's not about that. So if you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. Number 4, the good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. How many times do you hear in sales, I'm only as good as my last sale? Well, that's not true. You're good all of the time. All that I would like to say about this is, what is the intention for what you're doing? Look at all the work that went into this place on Saturday to get the yard ready for the Unity Fest. Look at all of the volunteers that showed up besides the team that did all of the things to keep that day going. The whole band, they're exhausted. They're not here. They played for, 6 hours straight. Look at all of that. So let us not forget it. Let's not forget the good. All the work that Annie has put in working with me to get all of this, and Leanne and the flowers and everything. So it's not going to be forgotten tomorrow, because what we have to say is the intentions were good. The volunteers were good. All the legwork that Annie has been doing has been good. The flowers and the shopping that Leanne has been doing, it's good. So the good you do today, do it anyway, not for applause, not for any other reason than from your heart space. Leave the altar and go heal, and then come back and do good. It's written in the Bible. If you have trouble with your brother, then go to your brother, talk with your brother, and then come back to the altar. And not this is not an altar, but this altar, the altar that's within. What is important here is that you remember what is important, who you are and how you live your life. How you live your life. George Washington Carver wrote this: how far you go in life depends on being tender with young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, tolerant of the weak and the strong, because someday you will have been all of these. You will have been all of these. So, number 5, honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. At the conference that I was just at, there was a whole segment on being vulnerable, and people think they can't be vulnerable because that's being weak, and they can't let that side of them show. And what the conference was, people that were speaking in the conference were saying that to be vulnerable is to be real, is to be authentic. It's like when I broke down when I first came here in Monica's arms sobbing, and here I am, the minister, and I'm in her arms in my kitchen sobbing. That's being vulnerable. That's being real. That's saying, this is who I am. This is what I'm feeling. This is horrible. And having somebody love me and not judge me. Being vulnerable is the most authentic place that you can be in your life. It's so important. See, because here's the thing. When we're honest and frank with each other, we can build strong relationships. We know where we stand. We know how to meet each other's needs. So many of you in here have met my needs, and I have met yours back. Without that, we blunder unintentionally. We hurt ourselves and we hurt others. Another enemy is fear. It's the enemy of love. Fear is the enemy of love. It worries and our anxieties stop the flow of love. I read somewhere that the cheapest room in any place is the room for fear. So I would like you all to go to much more expensive rooms in your mind and leave that one. So honesty, frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank. Do it anyway. Number 6, the biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. How many times do you get an idea? I mean, you get this, Jackie comes into me in my office, oh, she's amazing, and she comes running and she says, I have this idea, and and I don't say, well, we could never do that, there's no money, or who would do that, we need a committee, but what do I say? Put it in the idea file, let's look at that, that's a great idea. Jill said to me this morning, and Jackie, How about putting the jar out there so when people come in, they see the money jars, and if they have any change in their purse, they'll put it in. Great idea. Like, oh no, well, that would be asking for money. Well, we can't do that because we're a church and people don't want to ask for money because they were Catholic once and they always wanted money. No, we want money too. We got that thing going there, you know? You know what I'm saying? You gotta think big anyway. How come my computer did this? Look at this. Oh, okay. End of talk. Okay. So, what constitutes a small person is not that they're bad people. Let's get rid of that. Frugal people or whatever, small people, they're not bad. They're people with just a limited view on the life in the world. So, can we help open them up to that? Can we make people laugh? There are people who say that could never happen, that will never work. Sometimes people shoot down people because they're afraid they might get put on that committee and they don't want to do the work. Or they may think that they look bad. Well, if you're better than me, and then I'm not showing up and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Think big. Think big, because out of that comes something else, right? This table, Monica said a long time ago, maybe when we get a new table, don't put it there because it won't show. Put it there. Great idea. We did it. Don't be afraid to say something. Think big. We have problems in our world. And we need to have big ideas to think about them. Did any of you see on Facebook this morning the cars that were climbing over cars? They're these big space cars this big, and they have these legs that go up, and they can move through traffic, and and it says, think of the future, or what the future, it said, what the future. And I'm going like, this is amazing. Like this big thing, and it's crawling over all of the cars, and it's going through traffic. And then when it came to a bridge, it went low and went under the bridge. And somebody's thinking big. How do we solve the problem, right? So we need to think big. The ideas that you have today can be saving our world tomorrow. So the biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down. Let's not do that by the smallest men and women with the smallest mind. Think big anyway. And number 7, now this one's going to hit home because it sure hit me this morning when I was going over this. People favor underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for the underdogs anyway. We sympathize with the underdog because we identify with them. When I was a child, my mother was always criticizing me for bringing home the underdog. I brought home the dirty kid. I brought home the fat kid. I brought home the starving kid. I brought home the boy with the pimples. I mean, I was always collecting, and my mother was always like, you always bring home this, I won't say what she said. But anyhow, yeah, because I remember one time this girl, this is gross, she had crusted hair. I sat and vacuumed crust out of her hair, but with my mother's vacuum. But so, you do what you gotta do in life. You gotta help people. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I was a strange child. You see, because we're not about our reputations. We love the stories, and we love to cheer people and bring them peace. And because who we are, sometimes we need to give help when we can, no matter what it is. No matter what it is. If you really, Joseph Campbell wrote this, if you really want to help the world, what you have to do is to teach how to live in it. How do we help teach each other to live better? And that no one can do it who has not themselves learned to live in joyful sorrow and sorrowful joy of the knowledge as life is. So we've gone through things and they've hurt us, but through that we've come out to another side. So the sorrow goes into the joy. And then if somebody else is telling the story, then you have a story to say, but look, this is how you can balance this. This is how you can flip it over. But if we don't have that experience, why can I do counseling? Not because I've been trained in counseling, which I have been. Because every one of you have a part of my story. And my hurts and my pains and your hurts and your pains, it may be, my uncle and your brother or your aunt and my sister, but we all have that, and I've been there. I'm a little bit older than some of you, and I've had that experience, and that's why you can do counseling, and that's why you can understand, and that's how you feel. So when someone's telling you the story, listen with your whole heart and soul and find that story within you or within your family and then be able to share, because no one's alone. Sometimes we think we're so alone. Nobody's there to help us, and everybody's there to help us. There isn't a person in here today, if one of you went to and said, I need help, would say, well, I'm sorry, but I have to go. The football game's on. Dirk, right? Okay. So people favor underdogs, but sometimes they turn on us and they follow the top dog. Fight for the underdog anyway. So number 8, when you spend years building, what you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. And how much have we seen that in our weather and what goes on in the world in war? Build anyway. Talk about the gift of living without the fears of what if. We can be lost in our thoughts and fears, or we can remember to breathe and soften our heart. So interesting. Last week, I was talking about the heart math, and in my Sunday talk, the guy that did heart math was at the conference. I had no idea that the guy that did heart math was at the conference. And he taught a thing which I'm not going to go into long today, but I'm going to do it with us another day. But basically the thing is to stop what's going on and to pull back for a minute is just to do a couple of breathing things and just put your hand on your heart and say, how can I have a different response? And I've been having difficulty. I have young neighbors under me, and they're kids, and they're noisy, and they have those video games, and like the vibration, the boom, 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 and of course my house is going boom, boom, boom. And so anyhow, I came home, and I heard that sound, and I went right to the heart mouth and into my heart, and just, how can I have a better response? How can I have a better response? Live and let live, live and let live, live and let live is a better response. And it stopped. And when I came in today, I went in my office, and how do I have a better service? Just to serve. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve. And it's amazing. So, I had 4 hours of listening to band, and no coincidence in the universe, are there? No. Oh, right. Okay. You got to be the leader. Okay. So it's, remember, if we get lost in the thoughts and fears, we can go to that heart space. It was so funny because the guys had shirts, and one guy said, I'm gonna pull the buttons off my shirt. I keep going to that heart space because it was like, because the guys didn't want to be like, oh, so praying. So they were like pulling their buttons on their shirts going. It was very funny. So yes, tragedy hits, and yes, we can bemoan. And how many people say, it doesn't matter, I can replace all this, but I can't replace my family. I can replace all this. And do we care about these people? Oh, please care about all the people in all of the hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes and whatever. Care, just care. Because if enough of us care, that energy goes out and it helps. So number 9, people really need help but may attack you if you help them. Help them anyway. How many times have you gone to a friend and you were going to do the honest thing and say how you feel about something, and they jump all over your face? But it's the right thing to do. Help them anyway. It's like a caring mother, like when you're holding and guarding the life of her only child with a boundless heart and that loving energy. Hold yourself and all beings as your beloved children. And finally, the 10th commandment. Give the world the best you have, and you will get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. And from the author, he said, the cost of giving your best can be high, and sometimes it can. The only thing that costs more is not giving your best. So if you aren't giving your best, you aren't who you're supposed to be. And, like I'm the one in here that's been moving around a lot of cheese, but I've been giving my best because that's what I believe. And in doing that, it's for the good of all. And sometimes that's not accepted, and that's okay because that's what I'm in service to do. And then when you have to never forget that we're unique. Each one of us is a unique. And that means you have something special to contribute. And you make that contribution by giving your best. So I have a question for you. If you are not giving the world your best, what are you saving it for? What are you saving your best for? It's like not using your china. I use my china. Those of you who've been in my house, you know that. I use my china. I use my crystal. When I have a glass of wine and somebody goes to take a water glass, I have a heart attack. Give me that. Get a wine glass. You know? No. We use crystal in here. We use china. Give the world your best. Don't save your towels for the guests. By the way, don't use my guest towels in my house. There's little hand ones on the thing. But I always want to get a sign for my bathroom that says the guest towels on the wall thing. They're not for guests. They're decorations. Yeah. But give your best all the time. Give your best. See, this is your life. Despite what's going on in the world around you, this is your life, right here and right now. What you do to choose with your life is up to you. Personal meaning in life means giving your best, just giving your best. Why would you want to give any less? Give the world your best. Sometimes you may get kicked in the teeth. Give the world your best anyhow. So to live in a paradoxical life then it means that you're caring about others and yourself. It's about becoming a part of a much larger picture. The poet Emily Dixon wrote this: "If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life from aching, or cool one pain, or help one robin into its nest again, I shall not live in vain. Always do what is good and right and true, and you will never walk in vain. And a final word, my sacred loving children, remember your own loving heart. Trust it. Honor it." And the Buddha says there is no higher happiness than peace. And so ends this lesson, and so begins a very new moment. And so it